Hi there, and welcome to this day in history for January 10th. January 10th is the 10th day of the year in the Gregorian calendar, with 355 days remaining until the end of the year most years, and 356 days remaining to the end of the year in leap years. Today's word is contraption. I was surprised to learn that contraption is a portmanteau, or a blended word, most likely from the blending of contrive, trap, and invention. Contraption is a noun that means a device that appears to be strange, makeshift, or complicated. The first documented use of the word contraption is 1825. It's always fun for me to see how old or how new some of these word forms are. Now, before we get started, I want to remind you that links to my research are included in the show notes and encourage you to smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. And with that, we're going to start in the year 49 BC, when Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon. I've heard that phrase before, cross the Rubicon, and it always seems to portend some pivotal moment, some pivotal event of things that are about to happen. Crossing the Rubicon. Okay, this is it now, boys. And sure enough, here's the story about Julius Caesar crossing the Rubicon. This signaled the start of a civil war. The Rubicon is a relatively shallow river in the north part of Italy. And why would crossing a river be so significant? Well, it is that Caesar had come to be thought of as a champion of the common people and had advocated for a variety of reforms, and the Senate actually became fearful of him, demanded that he relinquish control of his army. Caesar said not only no, but heck no, and marched his army to Rome, although this was not allowed. Generals were not allowed to bring their armies into Rome at all. But that's what he did. So the crossing of the Rubicon was the switch that flipped, so to speak. The thing that was the beginning of it. Crossing the Rubicon. In 1843, Franklin James, the lesser-known older brother of Jesse James, was born in Clay County, Missouri. On January 10th of 1861, Florida became the third state to secede from the Union. In 1870, John D. Rockefeller incorporated Standard Oil. In 1901, the first great Texas oil gusher was discovered at Spindletop in Beaumont, Texas, signaling the start of the U.S. oil industry. In 1920, the Treaty of Versailles took effect, officially ending World War I. Also in 1920, the League of Nations Covenant entered into force. In about another week, the organization will hold its first council meeting in Paris. In 1923, President Harding ordered U.S. troops home from Germany. 4 years after the end of World War I, President Warren G. Harding ordered U.S. occupation troops stationed in Germany to return home. In 1941, FDR introduced the Lendlease Program to Congress. This plan was designed to help Britain, but still keep the U.S. only indirectly involved in World War II. The Lendlease Program provided for military aid to any country whose defense was vital to the security of the United States. Congress overwhelmingly accepted the plan, which only staunch isolationists opposed. This way, we could lend arms to Britain with the understanding that after the war, America would be paid back in kind. Also, this plan did not require immediate repayment, and the United States commandeered what was left of Britain's gold reserves and overseas investments to help pay for the increased defense production. In 1946, the first General Assembly of the United Nations opened in London. 51 nations were represented. In 1962, an avalanche on the slopes of an extinct volcano killed more than 4,000 people in Peru. 9 towns and 7 smaller villages were destroyed. It's not that unusual for them to have avalanches in that area, but there's usually about 20 or 30 minutes from the time you hear the first rumblings of an avalanche until it arrives, which ordinarily would give people time to seek higher ground, but this one was so big that it took only 7 minutes to travel 9 miles. On January 10th, 1967, President Lyndon B. Johnson asked Congress for more money to support the Vietnam War. That war was going nowhere fast, and while the enemy also suffered heavy casualties, they did not show any signs of giving up. Desperate for more military funding, Johnson proposed a 6% surcharge surcharge tax on personal and corporate incomes. Congress approved it, but the American public didn't like it, as you can well imagine. Previously ambivalent citizens began to protest having to pay more taxes to support a war that appeared increasingly impossible to win. Consequently, Johnson's popularity waned such that he decided not to run for re-election in 1968. His successor, Richard Nixon, won most likely on his promises to end the war. On January 10th of 1990, Time Warner was formed by the merger of Time Incorporated and Warner Communications. And on January 10th, 2000, in one of the biggest media mergers in history, America Online Incorporated announced its plan to acquire Time Warner Incorporated for some $182 billion in stock and debt. The result was a $350 billion megacorporation, AOL-Time Warner, which held dominant positions in every type of media, including music, publishing, news, entertainment, cable, and the internet. On January 10th of 2008, the world's cheapest car debuted in India. At the New Delhi Auto Expo in India, Tata Motors debuted the Nano, billing it as the world's cheapest car. The anticipated price tag was to be around $2,500. Tata, do they call it Tata or Tata? India's largest automaker, called the four-door bubble-shaped mini vehicle, only 5 feet wide and 10 feet long. They called it the People's Car and declared that it would be a vehicle for families that previously hadn't been able to afford a car. At the time, it wasn't uncommon to see an entire family precariously packed onto a single motorbike. Tata does not just make inexpensive cars. In March of 2008, the company purchased the venerable British brands Jaguar and Land Rover from the Ford Motor Company for $2.3 billion. And I think that's going to do it for us today. Again, links to my research are included in the show notes. Give it a like if you enjoyed this video. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and feel free to share. And don't forget to check out my other channel, 8 Susquehanna. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. It helps if you actually remember to hit the record button. Open wide. There, there's a little birdie on my front porch. Alrighty, back to work. Okie dokie, Smokey. Okay, that's all one long sentence. Alright, that's a lot of words. I don't know how to say that. Well, figure it out in editing. We did that yesterday. Some things just can't be done. Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? She's not a man. See, this is what happens when we're not scripted. This is why I don't do live shows.